also, you spoke to him about the role of the Biden administration and the Democrats, and he basically reiterated that the January ceasefire deal would not have happened if Kamala Harris had won the elections. But also, Osama Hamdan was one of the Hamas officials who spoke directly with the Trump administration. One of the Hamas officials was in direct talks with Adam Boehler. Can you explain who Adam Boehler is and what Osama Hamdan said about his meeting with him?
I mean, first, just one bit of background about Osama Hamdan. He's a chemist by training, and he. This is one thing I try to share with people because you don't often think about it. When you talk to many of these resistance leaders, so many of them are doctors or scientists or scholars. I mean, Gaza has one of the highest rates of higher degrees of education of any population in the world, and many of them were educated in the West. For instance, Bassem Naim, another senior Hamas official, is a medical doctor who studied medicine in Germany. Abu Marzouk studied and got higher degrees in the United States. Osama Hamdan, a highly educated man, and he joined Hamas in 1992, a few years after its founding, and has served in a number of key capacities for the movement. He was the head of its operations in Tehran, in Iran, in Lebanon. He was the head of its international relations department and was one of the top advisors to Ismail Haniyeh, who was assassinated by Israel last summer in Tehran when he went to attend the inauguration of the new Iranian president. And remember that Ismail Haniyeh won the elections in Palestine in 2006, not just in Gaza, but in all Palestinian territories. Ismail Haniyeh was supposed to be the prime minister of all of Palestine, and then you had the civil war break out between Mahmoud Abbas's forces from Fatah and Hamas, and that essentially split Palestine into the occupied West Bank and Gaza. And so, Hamas has been in charge of Gaza since that period, but I just want to remind people that they actually won the full democratic elections that the Carter Center and others said were free and fair elections. So when we're talking about the figures here that are shaping the political perspective of Hamas, it's cartoonish how they're portrayed. You can have your own, whatever opinion you want about what their policies are, what their perspectives are, but at least base it on a factual assessment, on real information, and not just what feels good to you to say about them because, oh my God, scary Hamas. So I say all of this because Osama Hamdan and Bassem Naim, who is a senior member of the political bureau of Hamas, were the point people in meeting with Adam Boehler. So they have a series of discussions with Adam Boehler, who was President Trump's special envoy on hostages. Adam Boehler is also a college roommate of Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law, and a close friend of the Trump family. So Boehler goes over, technically because his mandate is to speak to anyone, anywhere about American captives, and there is at least one living U.S. citizen, or believed to have been living at least until recently, Edan Alexander, being held in Gaza. There are several other people with American citizenship that were held. Some have been released in exchange deals. Others have been killed since the October 7th war began. So the official reason that they were meeting with Adam Boehler was to discuss American captives held in Gaza. But what Hamas officials told me was that these were much broader discussions that took place, and that Boehler actually was expressing great interest, not just in understanding Hamas's perspective on the events of October 7th and since then, but also in understanding the political history of Hamas, the political history of the Palestinians, and how they see that history. They said that it was a very friendly and diplomatic conversation. And when Adam Boehler then goes on American television after word of these direct talks became public, and on Israeli television, he starts saying things like, that they were that essentially that they're normal people to talk to, that they engage in diplomatic conversation, and he pushed back against Ron Dermer, Netanyahu's political hitman, who's in charge of negotiations now for Israel, saying Ron Dermer Israel doesn't set the policy of the United States, and we can talk to whomever we want to speak with. Well, Boehler then is subjected to a big smear campaign for having the audacity to imply anything other than Hamas were monsters, with horns growing out of their heads. And so what was going to happen, though, when that took place, is that the Boehler meetings, I was told, were meant to lead to direct talks with Steve Witkoff, who is Donald Trump's main envoy negotiating any deal that's going to happen in Gaza. And Hamas believes that the Israeli campaign against Adam Boehler was actually aimed at ensuring that Steve Witkoff was not going to engage in direct talks with Hamas. And they also said this is one of the reasons why they assassinate people like Ismail Haniyeh or others, because they don't want an elected Palestinian, for instance, with legitimacy to be able to speak directly to the Americans. So that's what Hamas is saying. But their belief was that Adam Boehler understood it. He understood it to the point where Adam Boehler more or less accurately described what is known in Arabic as a hudna proposal from Hamas. He goes on Israeli and American television and he says, what Hamas is proposing is a multi-year, all-for-all deal with Israel, where all Israeli captives are going to be released and where large numbers of Palestinian prisoners are going to be released and where we're not going to have an active war anymore. This was an American official engaging in direct talks with Hamas, who then goes on television, not just in the United States, but also in Israel, and more or less accurately describes what is Hamas's major idea about how to resolve the conflict with Israel that it's been proposing since the early 1990s, when Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, the founder of Hamas, first started discussing a hudna while in an Israeli prison. Then Boehler gets destroyed in the press. The Witkoff meeting is off. The Israelis resume the genocidal scorched earth bombing campaign. And now you see Trump parroting. There was a moment where Trump was sort of not so inaccurate in kind of how he talked about things regarding Gaza. But now Trump is like, he's just becoming a conveyor belt for the Israeli narrative in many, many ways. And, so from the perspective of Hamas, I think it was very telling for them. And they feel that the world should understand this, that when diplomats are allowed to directly speak with them, and it's not through an Israeli-controlled lens or an Israeli-controlled microphone that could be yanked away, and they're able to actually explain their perspective about the Palestinian cause of liberation, what they think about a two-state solution, what they think it would be necessary to have actual meaningful stability and peace in the region, that gets very dangerous for Israel.